You're listening to the Listing a Week podcast, a podcast that teaches real estate agents how to generate a listing a week and grow their business. My name is Todd Tramonte, and I'm a Dallas, Texas-based real estate broker, author, radio host, team leader, and real estate coach. And I'm sitting down with my team of agents to talk about how they generate a listing a week or more, the lessons they've learned, and how they differentiate in a noisy real estate industry, and how you can too. Welcome, folks. We got another episode of the Listing a Week podcast here, and we've cleverly named it that because what we talk about each week is how to get a listing a week. That's right. Ian's always there to back me up, guys and girls. So here's the deal. I think last show we talked about, we talk a lot about getting a listing a week, and there's kind of an undertone quite often of this all sounds great, but where do I get the leads? So last show we talked a lot about the fact that leads really aren't the problem in the current industry. And we did talk about a lot of sources for those, right? A lot of low-cost sources where you can go and grind and knock doors, do open houses, call expireds, call neighborhoods, those kind of things. And then, of course, we talked a little bit about some paid marketing. You can do radio, TV, billboards. We didn't spend a ton of time on that stuff because there's plenty of sources on where you can spend money for leads. Mm-hmm. But what we talked about was leads are not the biggest issue. Conversion is what everyone ends up digging into. I know tons of people, team leaders, individual agents with computers, cell phones, databases full of Zillow leads, Realtor.com leads, home search leads, buyer leads, whatever, open house leads, a database full of people, and they're not converting anything. So the question ends up being conversion. And in our massive amount of pre-show preparation, we talked about the fact that one of the other big frustrations for people, believe it or not, is once success comes, okay, I'm taking a listing a week or more now. I'm averaging 4 or more a month, and now I'm trying to figure out what the heck do I do with it all? How do I manage it? How do I not really drop the ball and let a client down? So we'll throw that one out for today for an open conversation and just see what are on people's minds. We've got Jeremy with us again, Jeremy Payne, marketing specialist on our team.
Buddy.
There you go. And if you don't know, if you're listening in for the first time, on our team, a marketing specialist is what everybody else calls a listing agent. So Jeremy's out running around. In the last week or so, what appointments, clients-wise, what have you done?
Yeah, so long story short, to answer your question, the way I make sure to stay on track with a bunch of listings is I essentially pray that the other agent will remind me what to do whenever it's needed. Because I just kind of pray.
And Jeremy just got fired, so that's fine. We'll keep him around for the show.
It was great chatting with you guys. I'll talk to you next week.
Good to have you.
Mason, who puts all of this together for us, is now just being promoted into
right.
the new marketing specialist role.
We'll have to get him a license, but we'll figure that out soon enough.
So just in the last week, yesterday evening, myself and one of our buyer specialists met with a couple who we actually got referred to these people when we were meeting with another initial consultation.
Nice.
That is more of a long-term nurture. We met with them less than a week ago, and as we're sitting there just building rapport and kind of chatting about long-term plans and how we can add value, they were like, oh my goodness, you guys need to speak with our best friends. They're thinking about moving in the next couple months to a year, and those are always the best, right? When you get referrals before you've really even had to prove your worth or anything, which has been great. So I've met with both of them. I've got several properties actively on the market, and then I've got 3 or 4 pending right now as well. So scheduling has been huge for me, right? Just having to keep all of that together, making sure that I'm doing what I say I'm going to do. It's easy to put it all together on paper, but then to actually follow through with that has been an important piece for me. But
what would you say is the hardest piece when you start getting clients to maintain?
I think it's easy to kind of be out of sight, out of mind. If for instance, I've got several different clients that are in the pre-live process right now. They've signed. We're in the process of getting repairs done, doing some of the different things that we do to pre-market a house. But when I don't see them on a daily basis and I'm not actively handling showings and things like that, it's easy at times, if you're not careful, to let that kind of slip into the burner and then to stop adding value for them on a daily or weekly basis.
That brings up a couple of really good points. To go directly to what you're saying, if you're an agent that works both sides and you haven't fully thought through this, they're two very different businesses. representing a buyer and working buyers is really a totally different business than working sellers. Now, it's the same core industry of residential real estate. Same license applies in most states, blah, 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 blah. But what we're talking about is when you're working a buyer and they're actively looking, it's very difficult to get into an out of sight, out of mind situation because you're probably talking about, we're going to get together again on Thursday. What are we going to go see? When can we meet? Do you want to ride together? Do you want to meet at the office? You know, those kind of things. With a seller, it is very possible, and oftentimes the best case scenario, that you will meet with them once in the initial consultation, or what most people would call a listing appointment. And we would do that in the office most of the time. We do it at the house if it's further away, or most people would probably go to the house. You'd meet with them then, and then you'd see them again at closing. We just call it bookends, right? The beginning, front end, and the back end. And it's easy then it's not like you're going to skip out on important things, right? But what Jeremy is saying is those extra touches where you're adding value that's non-essential. It's not like you're going to get an offer and just not present it, or you're going to have a inspection, pre-inspection come in and not look at that report with them. What we're talking about is those extra touches where you're in the churn, you're in the grind of getting a pre-inspection done, getting photography done, getting staging done, getting that on the MLS, calling that person back, scheduling some coming soon appointments, making sure the sign and the rider are correct, having the lockbox out there, making sure their expectations are appropriate for what's coming, but not necessarily saying, I should just reach out, chat with them, see how they're doing, make sure they know what I did today, because I did a lot, but they don't know because we never interacted.
Yeah. We refer to it as the call for no reason, right? We're just kind of saying, hey, we're just calling to you, and I've got nothing really new to tell you. I just want to touch base and just see how you're doing. Do you have any questions for me? Is there anything I can help you with right now?
Yeah, and this is a problem that I think is not quite as relevant when you only have one or two listings, because they're the front of your mind every day, right? What can I do to get these things down the road? I'm going to call and find out what's going on. But when you've got 19 signed clients and you've got 3 or 4 active listings and 4 or 5 pending, all of a sudden you've got 10 more that are somewhere in the process, maybe a couple weeks to a month away.
At least.
And having to still add that same value that you would if they were your only listing is what's important to me. And that's where scheduling some of that to me is really helpful, and reminding myself, hey, send these guys a PAN note or a personal acknowledgement note, just a handwritten letter saying, hey, I appreciated what you guys did when we met. I loved this about you guys, or something to add some value to them.
And what I'll talk about in a second is we say on our team and with our coaching and consulting clients that the most important piece of technology we have in the company, on the team, is a calendar. It's a schedule. You can joke about that people have iPhones that will like control the space station right now, but the most impactful...
Is that true, by the way?
I doubt it, but it could be. I'm obviously a tech dude.
I got excited.
I'm obviously... my cell phone.
Pretty sure there is an app.
There's an app for that?
There's got to be an app for that. No, my point is this. The most impactful, most important for you piece of technology is that schedule, is that calendar, because it's the only way you're going to get all of that done, right? And a basic Google Calendar, I don't care if it's a printed calendar, if you'll actually pay attention to it and use it, that's where you prioritize your life. We'll get back into that in a second, but I wanted to finish a thought on your point about if you only have a couple of listings, this isn't as big of a deal. We joke in our office about how easy it is to tell that an agent only has 1 or 2 listings, right? Because the way they talk and the way they act is that they are obsessing over that one. So you've got 4, 5, 6 active, which is actually a little bit low for our team, not for you, but because of the market we're in. Nobody has a whole lot more than that, because we're still selling them really quickly, but there's just not that many out there to have, right? So as a team, we've got a good number. We'd like to have more, but we're selling them quickly and we're signing them quickly. It's just they're in those 3 stages. We've got some coming soon that we've signed, but they're not on the market. We've got some on the market, and then we've got some pending, and we're churning that pretty quickly. So all that to say, instead of just having a bunch of them sitting active, not selling, where you're only focused on active, where you're living the life of like price reductions and bitter sellers, you're in a really healthy, constant turnover and churn. So there's even more things to look at. When you've got an agent that has 1 or 2, they'll call you and say, I was calling you about the offer. And you're like, the offer?
Right.
And in my mind right now, that's one of 17 possible different offers. And it might be more like 40 if we consider all the potentials, right?
Well, we get it on sign calls too. Hey, I'm calling about that house you've got for sale.
Right.
Well,
I need a little bit more information.
And that's funny, but you can understand that's a potential homeowner.
Right.
That's a consumer. They're
Even
not
from
supposed
agents,
to know.
we get that same question.
Yeah, well, yeah, when it's an agent,
Are you
there's no
looking to buy it
excuse.
yourself? No, I'm an agent. Oh, okay.
Right.
Which one?
But to your point about managing, okay, the initial question we talked about at the beginning of the show was, okay, now I'm getting a listing a week or more. How do I manage it without totally destroying a client relationship by dropping the ball, right? And so far, the only real, we'll get into it, but the only real technical answer we've given is a calendar. And it is that powerful, though, right? Now, obviously, you might say you've got team and staff and support and other agents and things that are really helpful, too. But let me, just to finish the thought on why the calendar is the most important technical piece for you. The calendar is where we prioritize our lives, right? Now, if you have integrity with your calendar, and I say this a lot and people are like, what are you talking about integrity with your calendar? I mean, when you make a commitment to yourself and you occupy time on a calendar, you've given away your time, your most limited resource, and I believe it's for sure your absolute most limited resource, way more than money or anything else. You've given that in exchange for a commitment to do something, and then you don't do it. Now you've broken that. You've lost integrity with yourself. So if you can have integrity with yourself on your calendar, it becomes this really powerful tool where you prioritize your life. That's date night with my wife. I will not compromise on that. My marriage comes first. That's when I spend time with my kids. I coach their team. I pray with them at night. I cook them dinner. I play catch in the backyard. I wrestle with them on the couch, whatever. And that's not I'm not giving that up. Okay, now we get into work. I'm gonna prospect. I'm gonna do client care. And that's where, do you schedule an hour in the afternoon 3, 4, 5 times a week to make the call that's not needed but is really, really valuable and things like that. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and when I first joined the team, I mean, we talk about some of this stuff, and to maybe some of you listening, you're like, that sounds insane. When I first joined the team, I was like, why would you calendar playtime and read the Bible in the morning, whatever it may be, even drive time? To me, I was like, no, I'll make that fit, right?
Now he's talking about my calendar.
But yeah, well, no, that's all of our calendars now. I've got all that stuff in there as well, because over time I've seen it's not just putting stuff on the calendar, but it's being realistic and saying I need X amount of time built in to get where I need to go, or to prep for what is actually on the calendar. And so now I've got prep time built into my calendar. I've got everything personal. That's a great way for my wife and I to be able to coordinate what I have going on, so my business stuff can stay where it needs to. But I mean, get as detailed as you can, because that helps a ton. And even when it's background type stuff, like if I've got our marketing team staging one of my properties, I put that on there. I don't have to be there for that, but I want to know when it's happening, and that's a perfect reminder for me to call that day and say, hey, how'd it go? What are your thoughts? What did you learn from that? And there's one of those.
And those are those calls for no reason, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to make that phone call, but you choose to make it because it's adding an added layer of value.
Yeah, and just in case somebody's watching or listening to this and they're thinking, well, no reason doesn't sound right. There's a reason. It's a call that's not required.
It's to add value.
It's a call that's not absolutely essential, right? You can sell a house without those calls.
Yeah.
But making those calls adds a ton of value. So, it's a call that's not required, maybe a better term, doesn't quite roll off the tongue, right? But we talk about it in that way because the client doesn't necessarily view that as essential. But when you call and say, hey, just checking in, the stagers are going to be there today at 2:00. The video team is going to be there, just after that, whatever. They're like, man, this guy's really on top of it.
It shows them that you care.
Yeah, this guy's really on top of it. And you're saying, hey, just remember, it's probably going to be a lot of fun, but it can be a little bit stressful if you stay home, because they're going to totally rearrange how you view your life in your home. But remember, and then you take them back to some of the language from the initial consultation. Hey, it's like selling your car. I've got my kids' cleats in the back seat every day, but the day I sell it, none of that's in there. It's going to be leather conditioner and air freshener, blah, 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 blah. And remind them, the frustration, the annoyance, the expense, or whatever is going to generate this huge return. So think about this as a really simple, fun way to do that. Oh, you're right. Yeah. Thank you so much. Hey, it went really well. Stagers were great. You're setting all those steps up. Now, we're not talking today about the unnecessary call, but it's a point of conversion, and it's part of managing the process. Now, why would that call help you manage the process? Well, it'll keep you from having to make 8 calls later to solve a problem.
Well, one other thought I have on just communication in general, when we talk to people who have maybe had another agent before and it didn't go so well, the number one complaint I always hear from people is, I don't know, I never spoke to my agent. Like,
right.
Hey, well, how did this go? What was the feedback? I don't know, I never heard from my agent. Well, what was this like? I never heard from my agent. Like, that's the number one complaint I hear over and over and over.
NAR does research every year, and it's the number one complaint that everyone says is lack of communication.
And, it's kind of a catch-22 because most buyers and sellers want to know that you're successful, that you're doing
right.
business and you have a lot of deals, but every single buyer or seller wants to know you're going to take care of them personally, and they're not going to be another number to you, right? Just another listing.
Yeah, it's the balance of saying I'm going to treat you like you're my only client, but you are definitely not my only. It's like where's that balance? Yeah. And this is where if you're an individual agent and you don't have the team resources that we're talking about, that's, to be honest, strategically, that's how you beat a huge team. Is you're like, look, those guys sell 400 or 500 houses a year. They don't have time to focus on you and give you their time and attention. And if we're up against an itty bitty person that says that, it's like, hey, that's great. I'm not bad mouthing anybody, but that individual agent doesn't have the tools and resources to manage all this resource. I can treat you like you're my only client because I'm not the only one doing this. I have all this help. So let's go back to that though. So let's say I'm an individual agent and I want to take one listing a week, but I really don't want much more than that, right? I want to work 45 weeks this year, full out, and I want to take 45 listings, which means I want to sell, 35 or 40 of them probably, and that would have a great year. And I'd like to take all the buyers that come from that, which probably should be at least one per, even if you only did half. Now you're talking about 50, 60 transactions. So if I did that, I'd be great. I don't have all this staff, I don't have all these tools and systems or whatever, but so how do I manage it? Well, I would say we have not said anything today that you can't do on your own. You can work a great calendar, you can make those extra calls, but let's give some real good, tangible value here. What are some other things that help manage having a pretty solid listing inventory? I'll let you guys go, and I definitely have a few.
I would say accountability for one, absolutely. Whether you're an individual agent, you can pull in a family member or somebody else that's you're close to, a friend, just to help you stay on track with certain things. Hey, I need accountability this week on making sure that I do X, Y, and Z, whether that's personal things or work-related things, but just kind of sharing that with somebody so that you're not the only one in your head trying to do all of it together. You can kind of verbally get it out to somebody else to help them, they can help you understand.
Yeah, ultimately, to me, and I'm a product of my teacher sitting in this room with me, but the number one thing...
You're welcome.
That's not, no, partially, but no. The number one thing for me, if you want to truly take a listing a week and you want to be wildly successful in this business, you've got to always be planning for the future. And what I mean by that is prospecting. You've got to be paving the way for the future. No matter how many deals you have in your pipeline, if you set aside time to do what you're going to do, whether it's call expireds or call FSBOs or door knock, anything. You don't have to have systems. If you have systems, great, use them to their most, to the most benefit that you can. But it's happened to me multiple times in my first year when I was here. I got so caught up in big deals. To me, were huge deals because they were the only deals I'd ever done. Right. And my entire days were spent focusing on that deal and making sure it didn't fall apart.
Or being really, really good, but still falling victim to the roller coaster, right? I got 4 or 5 deals going, which is a good number of deals. Well, then now I only have one or none.
Yeah.
Well, it's the hardest commitment. I think it's the absolute hardest commitment for every single person to keep to themselves.
Right? And it's so easy to say. Yeah. It's so easy to say, I'll do it. And then 10 a.m. rolls around, and for me personally, and our team, we've set it up. We commit 9 to 11, 11:30 every single morning to doing that. But 10 o'clock rolls around, and I got 3 clients calling me, and I've got amendments coming in that need signing, and things changing. It's like it's so easy to say, I'll fix that later. I'll do that later, and then. For that not to happen, to me, that's the number one.
Yeah, thing. I would say that's the key skill set or discipline.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and to Jeremy's point, before we wrap up, I'm gonna shotgun, rapid fire, whatever you want to call it, pepper you with a bunch of little resources, tools, and systems you can use. Individual agent, team leader, whatever. Jeremy was saying you don't need all those systems. Now, I would word that differently, but what he's saying is. You can manage this with discipline. You don't have to have a ton of technology and structure and all that stuff. Obviously, some of those things are a benefit. Some of them are total distractions. But if you're willing to just be diligent every day and show up and prospect for 2 to 3 hours, you really won't need to prospect much more than that. And beyond that, you'll have a ton of time where if you need to, you could be reactive the rest of the day. But that's why we build it into the morning, because it's one of the only times of the day that you're going to be able to be really ruthless in being proactive. I'm not going to let anything else dictate what I do right now. From 8 to 10:30 a.m. or from 8:30 to 11 or 9 to 11, 11:30, whatever that looks like. But before all the other real estate agents wake up and before your clients, hammer out the essential things at work and start thinking about their house deal, that's what you get done. And if you can be really disciplined there, you can buy yourself a lot of freedom and flexibility for the remainder of your day to be a little bit more reactive and responsive and just return the text and the calls and the emails. Now,
when it's very rare that something that you're going to have to interrupt that time for anything that's like uber time sensitive, right? Because it's so rare that you're going to have a deadline.
You have 1 hour to respond to this email.
10:30 a.m. I mean, it's just...
This message will self-destruct before prospecting is over. Right. So what I would say is this, really quick. If you are taking a listing a week and you are an individual agent, you're going to want to hire an assistant pretty quickly. So we'll leave that for another discussion of what you could have someone do and the efficiency that could add. And when you're on a team like ours, that's a lot of that's built in. But I would simply say, if you're taking a listing a week, you need at minimum a whiteboard that's in front of your face all day, because like Jeremy said, out of sight can be out of mind. And you want a whiteboard with just phases of the process. These people are signed but not active. These people are active but we don't have an offer. These people are, whatever your area calls it, active option or inspection period or whatever. These people are pending. These people are closed, but within the last 90 days, because you want to keep your eye on those people really diligently too, right? So then you would know every day I'm going to sit down and look at my board and determine what's the most essential thing for me to do. I'm going to prospect and try to put some more people on the board. Then who are my most needy people, and then who are the most valuable contacts to make? Who would I want to stop by and talk to? Who do I need to schedule something for? But it could be that simple. Evernote on a cell phone, great way to do that when you're not facing your whiteboard. I think just the camera on your phone is a really great tool. Take a picture of that list so everywhere you are, you've got it with you. Obviously, you can do it digitally, like on a Google Doc or a Google Sheet or something like that. You could have a program like CTE, or if you have a CRM that incorporates that, you could keep that as a bookmark on the front screen of your cell phone. There's a lot of other little tech tools, and I would say one other quick system that can really help you manage a lot of, quote, listings is a transaction checklist. Just knowing, what do I need to do on every single one of these, so I'm not trying to reinvent my process every time, and I'm not doing a 97% job on each one, but it's a different 97% on each one. So every client's getting a slightly different experience, and that 3% can actually tank every single deal. The 3% difference could turn a phenomenal deal into a good enough deal where you don't get a review and you don't get a referral and they don't show up to your happy hour or your client event or whatever. So what are some little lightning round last minute thoughts, either confirming that some of those I said are valuable or others that I didn't say?
CTE is a fantastic tool and it's incredibly reasonably priced. I'm not like trying to sell you on it, but it is a great tool.
We
stands for Commitment to Excellence. Guy called Calvin Mergen created it, and it's all run through Excel. It's a great tool. Tons of stuff.
It's like $30 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a team,
it's
a little bit
very
more costly.
reasonable.
But yeah, it's super efficient. It's basically an online Excel sheet that shows you all the numbers in your business. Yeah. As long as you're willing to put the numbers in, it will display them in a way that's really functional. And the input is super minimal. It's just putting in average, putting in the address, putting in the price, putting in the commission rate, putting in the date it's gone live, and it's really, really, really great.
Yeah, I use that in conjunction with a personal Excel sheet I put together. For more, if an independent agent out there, just put a Excel sheet together, and I track all of the important milestones: sign date, consultation date, go live date. Did I write them a letter? When did I write them a letter? So I can, because that type of stuff, if you have a lot of clients, you're going to forget those things.
And our team tracks the team piece of that just on a Google Sheet, right?
Yeah.
What do all of our agents have? What's coming soon? What's pre-signed? What's active? What's pending? Price points. And then our team is doing a lot of the client care for our team members. So if you're a team leader or a broker, then we have what we call our client experience timeline, where we're sending out a welcome gift, we're sending out a letter, we're sending out a reminder, we're sending that ducks in a row that says, hey, are you ready for closing? Here's what you're going to need, all those kind of things. Here's a reminder of what we're doing for you right now. So anyway, a lot of what we talked about today is how to manage a reasonably solid active inventory of listings. It would mostly apply to buyers too, by the way. We've talked about some technology. We talked about some staffing stuff. We talked about the individual agent versus the active agent. We talked about a lot of communication stuff. But, if you're an agent out there and this still sounds insane to you because taking a listing every single week still sounds insane to you, shoot over to alistingaweek.com, alistingaweek.com. There's some free resources we have for you there. We have a complete training program. Jeremy talked about his teacher, his coaches, right? Ian and I have both helped him. Our team members have all cooperatively helped him. But he also sat down and went through our moduled online training, which we created for our team, but now we do sell to other agents. So this isn't a heavy pitch for that. But if you're interested in in-depth training beyond some of the free stuff, head over to alistingaweek.com. You can check out some free stuff. You can look at some paid stuff or whatever there as well. We look forward to talking with you more. We left a bunch of things unsaid. We'll circle back and talk about those again next week. It's always fun to have Jeremy with us. He pops in and out. So does John sometimes. We'll have some other guests on very soon. Ian helps me get this done every single day here on our team, as well as with our coaching and consulting clients at Real Estate Growth Systems. So anyway, thanks for joining us and tuning in. We'll talk to you again on the next one. Over and out.
Cheerio.
Cheerio.